G'day and welcome back. This is part 2 of my Strongberg Carlson tabletop radiogram. In part 1 I was forced to reveal the true brains behind my channel. And with their help, and despite a few hiccups along the way, the radio was sounding good again. In part 2 I'll work on the radiogram and maybe start on the cabinet. So today I thought I'd start on this turntable. It's in pretty good condition. It just needs cleaning, I assume, and probably some lubrication. This is my first attempt with a fully automatic turntable, so that might be interesting in itself. What I am interested in seeing is the idler wheel and what condition that's in. I imagine it'll be pretty ordinary by this time, 70 years old. So I'll flip it over and I'll take the platter off. We'll see what it looks like. Alright, there it is there. Just get Whitney out of the way there. Excuse me. Now it's got a little 3-way clip here to hold the platter on. Looks more like a Chinese puzzle. Okay. Well, there's the idler wheel, and wow, there's nothing left of that. I was just wondering what that was, but that's a clip off the knob for the volume control, so that's lucky to find that again. Saves me making a new one. So I'll just take this off. Yeah, so that's going to need a lot of work. Now that can't be salvaged, of course. What I can do though is make a new one. So I could either print one on my 3D printer or turn one up on my lathe. So I'll have to determine which is the best way of going with that. I'm just going to try and measure this. This will be in inches, so I've selected the caliper to inches. So it's 2.2. So probably was about 2 1/4 inch diameter. I'm just going to try this out, see how it works, if it does work. So I'll put the platter back on. I can be a motor and pretend it works. So put your skates on, Mariah. You're going in. You would then put that over there, I guess. Not sure what would happen if you didn't do that. And you have to select that to the 7-inch record. Sorry, I have to put my hand across there. It doesn't feel right. No, it's not working. Alright, that's enough playing around. I'll take this out, mount it on something, clean it all up, and then we can put some power on it and see how we go. Now I wondered how I was going to work on this thing, and I've seen people on YouTube struggle trying to work on them up and down, side to side. So I made a little carrier here. I probably spent an hour making this. It's just made out of scrap timber, nothing fancy. So I can just flip it over and work underneath. And flip it back, test it out. So that should be handy. As I said, I wasted an hour, but you know, it's probably going to pay for itself eventually. And I've also made it so that it'll fit other record players. That's just different screws in different positions. So, and also I can unscrew it and just put it flat and pack it away somewhere. So having done that, now I'm going to try and clean all this off. The biggest issue with these will be the grease that's dried out. So just clean that off and it'll probably work fine. The finish on this is in really good condition, except it's got little pock marks on it, so I'm not sure what they are. I'm going to try and polish them off, and hopefully I won't have to respray this. If I don't have to, that'll be great. I'll just leave it as it is. This area here is probably some of the worst, so I'll just try a little bit of polish on it, see how it goes, and that's coming up. Yeah, that's great. All right. Oh, look, that's like new. So, yeah, that's all this is going to need. There's little marks here that aren't coming off. There's a scratch there from the cartridge or something dragging across it. I don't think it's worth repainting the entire thing just to cover those up. So if it all comes out looking as good as this, I'm happy to leave it in this condition. Yeah, that's come up really nice. All I used there was a cream cut and polish. It's any brand, but it's just a fairly light cut and polish. But yeah, it's come up really well. I'm going to start cleaning up here. As I said earlier, it's just dried grease, and that's what stops these working. There's some there, and it's just the wax left out of the grease. The oil component of the grease is gone, and just left the wax, so it gets a bit sticky, attracts dirt, and that's what you get. Now for cleaning lately, I've been using this starting fluid that comes in a spray can, and it's of course to start engines. It's got 25% ether in it, so it's quite relaxing to use, and it does a good job. Now that was suggested by subscriber Jeff Clark, and I've put his name there so I can remember it. So yeah, this works quite well, so I'm going to try that on this, and we'll see how that goes. That worked quite well, and it's got rid of all the wax that's left in there, so I'm going to spin it over. I'll do the rest of it, and then I'll come back. I won't bore you while I sit there brushing on spray, but that's how I'm going to do it. I'll drown it and brush it off and then blow it away. I've just been trying to clean some of this stuff off here. I had to pull this apart. I couldn't move it. It's the grease is just hard. Wouldn't come off with a wire brush. So that's the sort of thing that's going to stop it working. Look at that. So I clean all that off. Now I finished cleaning everything, and I'm just about to grease it. I was reassembling this piece here. This has a really big hole drilled in it. This is the speed selector for the 45, 33, and I think that's detented. Yeah, so that would be why it's got a big hole. All you need to do is get it going, and it'll fall in the detent. This won't stop it. Now the other end of this lever has felt washers either side of this lever, and there was nothing in there when I pulled it apart. That was packed with grease. So, but what I might do is put some felt in there just to make it the same as the other one. So I'll put that washer there, then I'll put a little felt washer, put that on, another felt washer on top, and the washer, and then I'll put the clip on, and that'll keep it nice but still leave the slack in there. I've got to pull it apart again and grease it, but I just thought I'd show you what I was doing. If that's wrong, let me know. Now for grease, I'm just going to use this Inox machinery grease. It's safe and seems to work alright. It doesn't seem to dry out too quickly, so there's probably better greases than this, but alright, I'll be back in 2 hours after I find that. Well, it's the next day and I found it, so I'll put it on. It's not really the next day. Okay, that's working pretty good. Good. Well, I'm just going to carry on and grease the rest of it. It's all nice and clean. It cleaned up very well, actually. So I'll just put some grease on here, and we'll flip it over and we'll see if it actually works. Okay, I think I've greased it all. I'm just going to put the platter back on. We'll see what we can do with this. This platter's got a bearing on the bottom, a little bearing race, and I've cleaned that and re-greased that as well. So that's spinning quite nicely. Now, how do you make this work? I don't know. Right, I'll give it a go like I did before. Now I've turned the cartridge up so it doesn't damage the needle if it's any good. I'll put it on 45 for no reason. I'll put that on a 10-inch record. Now I'm assuming that's okay, so we should be able to just hit that. So what it looks like is that you would take this off, pull that around there, put a record on, put this over here. When it starts rotating, it pushes this in to find out what size the record is. The record drops, and then the arm will go and play. Alright, I'll get serious here. I think I'll take it inside and connect it to the power. I've made a little idler pulley up. We'll see if that works. I've relocated this to the workbench inside, and I've connected it to the power. And I apologise for the stupidity of me trying to make this work out in the workshop, and I didn't have a record there, and I'm trying to get it to sense a record. So I've worked all that out now. I've no doubt there's people yelling at the screen, you've got to put a record on, you've got to put a record on. Okay. Now here's the original idler pulley, and I've printed a new one. Now I haven't spent any time printing this. This is very rough. It has a tyre on it, which is actually a seal, just a square section seal. This one's too small. This is 2 1/8, and I think this is 2 1/4. So it's just a bit smaller. It's not going to make any difference to the player, but I'll make it the original size. So I need to go and buy a new square section seal so I can make a bigger one, and I'm going to make it out of aluminium. So, but this will do for testing. There's some little shimmy washers here. I'll put those on. Now, this hasn't got a bearing in the middle. It's just the plastic. Okay, so I'll just put the platter back on. I'll put this little clip back on because if I flip this thing over and I haven't got that on, it's going to fall on the ground. Okay, I've put some power on this thing, and I'm going to assume the motor runs. Now, if I put that there like that, I've got it on 45 speed. Actually, I'll just hang on a sec. Whoa. Okay, okay. It's going to make it. Okay, that doesn't sound good, does it? Something that struck me with this tone arm is the crazy angle it's on, and it's been worrying me, and I sort of keep trying to think I should try and straighten it. Then I think, oh, well, perhaps that's how they made it. No, it's not. Something's become clear to me now. This tone arm is mounted on white rubber grommets here and here to make it somewhat immune to vibration. And it's obvious now that the speed change lever yesterday also had a white grommet, and I was saying how hard the grease was. That was the remnants of the white grommet. So I need to pull this apart, clean all the white grommet rubber off, and put some new grommets on. And now, of course, I realise the speed change should have had a grommet on it as well. So I'll pull that apart later on, put a grommet on. In the meantime, I will fix these two here. I'll just remove this and clean that off. Alright, I've cleaned everything up and I've loaded a couple of new grommets in there, so that's looking good. Okay, let's see how it looks now. That's better. That's better. That didn't look right from the minute I saw it, so I should have investigated that earlier. Okay, let's have another go at this with that. Right. Here we go. Perfect. I don't know what that turntable sounds like. It's not good. Yeah, look at that. Turned off. Okay. So if I put that over there and leave it there, what's it do? I guess you're going into just a manual mode, eh? Oh, it's still going. It still picked up the accelerometer. Oh, now it thinks it's there. Okay. So clearly I still don't understand fully how it works, but we're getting there and it works fine. I'll just see if the reject works, which I no doubt it will. Yeah. Oh, now it's going back. Okay. that's not what I thought would happen. Oop, now I don't want to stop. Yeah, it's alright. That reject doesn't seem to work the way I would think, but I've had so many issues understanding what's going on with this thing. It may be right, I don't know. Doesn't seem right. Anyway, I'm going to run with it at the moment. I'll change the rubber grommet on the speed selector, and I'll buy a new square section O-ring and manufacture an idler wheel, and hopefully it'll be a bit quieter. Okay, there's the speed selector, so I'll take that off and put a grommet in there. Alright, well there's the new grommet in, and let's put the washer on. Let's hope this doesn't fly off somewhere. There we go. Alright. I've just rigged a couple of computer speakers to the cartridge here, and we'll just see if it works. I probably should check the needle, but it's only a Whitney Houston record, so it's not going to make any difference to me. It does work. Just rejector there, sorry Whitney. Yeah, it's working properly now. I thought that. I think there was a sequencing issue because I was playing around with it, so that reject's working now. So I think it's all working well. Okay, well I'm going to machine up a new idler wheel. I'm going to head off to the lathe and start this idler wheel. I've just quickly drawn up some dimensions that I need to make the new one, so I'll follow those. I went down to the seal place and bought a new seal, so that's there. I ordered some sintered bronze bushes some time ago for doing this job, so that'll fit on there, so I'll push that into the new wheel. Now I've got my bit of round stock in there, and I've faced it off to clean it up, and I'm just going to drill a hole in the centre, and then I'll open it out and we can put the bush in. Try and push this in. I've got some Loctite on there just to help it stay there. Looks good. Taken this out, cut it off, and then flipped it around and changed the jaws over, so I've mounted it the other way. I'm just going to face that off, then I've got to come in, chamfer in there and get down to the right thickness for the bushing. Well, there it is. We'll go and see if it fits. Well, there's my little wheel fitted on there, and it fitted correctly. It was okay. It is hitting this here, this capstan here. It's the aluminium ridge here is hitting that ridge here, so it needs to be lifted up. Now, I didn't worry about it originally because I thought I'll just lower this down. I can't move it though. It's either stuck or it doesn't go anywhere. I'm not sure. There's a little screw there if you can see it. I undid that and I can't move it. Now the other thing that went wrong was I made this diameter 53 millimeters on the aluminium, and the round stock I had was 50, so I was 3 millimeters short diameter wise. So I just made it as big as I possibly could, and I've come out at about 2 1/8 instead of what I guess is 2 1/4, so I'm 1/8 of an inch out. So that's only a 1/16 of an inch from side to side, but it may make a difference, but I'll have to see. The other problem I had was this motor just stopped running. It just seized up. the bearings had dried out, so I'm going to have to pull it apart and bake the bearings for a few hours in some oil to recharge the sintered bronze bearings. But I sprayed the motor with some WD-40 in both ends of the bearings, and it freed up straight away, so it's definitely got an issue with dried out bearings. These are the two bearings off the motor, and I've had them soaking in some solvent for the night just to get the oil out of these sintered bronze bearings. If you don't know what sintered bronze bearings are, they're copper and tin powder. They fuse it together with consume heat and pressure into the shape of the bearing that you want, and that leaves a very porous material. They then soak them in oil, and the oil sits in the pores, and when you put a shaft in there and rotate it, it pulls it towards the shaft with the capillary action and lubricates it. So they're quite a good little bearing, nice and quiet. They don't make a lot of noise like a ball bearing, so great for little fan motors and things like that. Now once these are dried out, I'm going to put them in some oil, heat them to about 170, 180 degrees C, and leave them there for about 8 hours, and that will soak the oil back into the bearing, and they'll be ready for another 30, 40 years. So I'm going to put them in the sun and let them dry out thoroughly. The other problem I was having was this capstan was stuck on the shaft, and I tried everything to get it off. I considered heating it, but I didn't want to do it with the rotor attached to it. So in the end I drilled a hole in the top and put a wedge under here and was able to punch that off the top. So while I was there, I machined about 1 millimetre off the top of the shaft here. That'll let the capstan sit down a bit further, and my new idler wheel will ride further up these little diameters here and clear this land here that it was rubbing on. So that should fix that problem, I hope. These have been out in the sun for about 5 hours, and the solvent's evaporated out of it. I'm pretty sure they'll be all right. I'm just going to try a bit of an experiment. Normally when they manufacture these, they put them in a vacuum to absorb the oil. What I thought I might do is try and vacuum the oil into them. Now for the purpose of the exercise, I'm going to use this vacuum canister here. I've got my vacuum machine here, and I can hear laughing now. I'm going to put the bearings in the canister, put some oil in there, and then lower the pressure until hopefully it soaks into the bearings. Now I've got a vacuum gauge here from my earlier days of working on cars. It goes to 28 inches of mercury. So I'll just see what this machine's capable of doing. It should get close to it. I think just under 30 is zero pressure. Alright, so that's gone to 26, just over nearly 27, so that's not bad actually. That's but it's better than I thought it would be. Alright, so I'll go ahead and try and do this. This is just ordinary motor oil. It's 10W30 SAE. So I'll put them in there. I'll take the gauge off this tube, and that goes in there, I think. Now we've never used this, and we don't ever intend using it, so don't worry about me putting oil in there. Not that it would be any massive harm anyway. I've just noticed there's a switch here, which is probably what you're supposed to push to vacuum it. So, yep. When that was vacuuming down, it pulled the some air out of the bearing. In fact, there's bubbles of air coming out now. So I'm going to leave it, and I'll just every 5 minutes just come and push the button again and make sure the vacuum's there. Maybe I'll leave it for an hour. I've got no idea how long you would do it for. Now you can see all those bubbles there, and they're coming straight out of the bearing. So this is actually working. I guess once it's taken the air out, you let it sit in the oil for the oil to soak back in. I really don't know. So as I said, I'll do this until perhaps the bubbles stop coming out, and then let it sit for a similar time to let the oil soak back in. Yeah, so yeah, I've got no information on how to do this, but interesting. This has been on for about 5 hours now, and there's still a ring of bubbles coming out of this bearing here, and you can see them coming off the surface of the inner lining of the bearing. So it's actually pulling the air out of the bearing, and the canister's holding the negative pressure in there pretty well. So I don't think I need to keep pushing the button every 5 minutes. It's getting pretty late now, so I'm not going to assemble this motor tonight. I'll leave it overnight in the oil, and in the morning I'll let the pressure off, let it sit for a while, and then I'll assemble the motor. Well, it's the next morning, and these stopped producing bubbles by the time I went to bed, so I took the vacuum off then. So they've been sitting here for about 9 hours, I guess, in the oil with no vacuum on them, so I guess it's soaked in. So I'll take them out of there, dry it off, and I'll reassemble the motor. Okay, I've reassembled the motor, and that's spinning quite well now. That's very free. Now when I reassembled this, I noticed these bushings have compressed, and the motor sits down a bit lower than I think it should. I'm going to see how it goes, but I might have to put washers there to build it up to get it back to the original height. The rubber's in very good condition. It's very soft and supple, so no problem with that. But it's too low. So I'll just see if it works. I've got the power on, and I'll just put that down there. That doesn't sound very good, does it? Alright, I'll just change speed. 33. Yeah. Okay. Well, now that might be because the motor's too low and it's running on the bottom of the rim of this platter. It doesn't sound right. I think what's going on is this motor is too low, the wheel's too low, and it's running out of the rim there, and it's actually running up on the aluminium here, hence the noise. So I'm going to put at least one washer under there and see how we go. They're pretty thin washers, but I really don't think I'm going to get us two in there. It'd be good if I could. I'll see if I can get it in. Oh, there you go. I did get it in. All right, I'll do the other two and then come back and we'll see what difference it makes. Okay, I've done the other two. We'll just put the platter on and see if it makes a difference or not. I'll put some power on again. We'll see what happens this time. Oh, doesn't work at all. Oh. Wow, that sounds awful. It's not working at all. I think my little idle wheel is just not a big enough diameter. It can't get in there actively enough, so I can't pull over. It's just not big enough. Well, I think I'll head down the shop. I'll buy a bigger piece of aluminium stock and I'll make a new pulley. It's the next day. I went to the shop and got some more aluminium stock. So this one's back to the original size. So it's about 2 1/4 inch. So I'll see if that makes a difference. I'm not sure if it will. So I'll just put his little clip on here. There we go. Alright, the platter's back on. Power's on. Let's see what it does now. A little bit of a scrapey noise there. I'm not sure what that is. It's gone now. 78. That's better. So that's working well. Okay, so the diameter of that idler pulley definitely needed to be similar to what it was originally. Now I want to measure the speed of the turntable. I've got an app on my phone and it will count the RPM and give a wow and flutter number, tell you how well you're going with that. So I'm just going to try that out now. Now I've had to build this superstructure here. This is the normal bit I use, this bit here, but because this has got an automatic spindle up the middle, I've got to make a little extension box. So if you can just stop laughing for a minute, it probably will work, I hope. Now, I haven't used this for a while, but I think you push start. That's right, then you start the turntable. Then it changes colour. Sorry, it's going to be upside down on your screen. There it is, so it's measuring now. I think it flashes when it's got the information you want. There it is. Okay. So it says it's doing 45.69. I've got it on 45 RPM. And if you can read that, it says wow and flutter 0.66%. Now I don't know if that's good or bad. Probably good for one of these record players, but probably not so good for a good quality one. So that's not bad anyway. So it's a bit fast. It hasn't got the needle dragging on it, so that probably slow it down a bit. That's probably about right. I'll just put it on 33. And we'll do it again. Look, 33. It's got a terrible noise in there. I'll have to find out what that is. So it's measuring now. There you go. So it says 33.45. That's pretty good, and it's got a plus or minus 94% for wow. So that's probably not real flash. Those two items here had little rubber stops on them, but they've seen better days, so just take that off. And I've printed out some new little plastic ones. Not quite as soft as the rubber, of course, but I think they'll be okay. There you go. Wow, they're tighter than I thought they'd be. They also printed one for the record measuring rod, whatever it's called. I don't think I'll get that one at all. There we go. Now they're not as soft as the rubber ones, of course, but if it's too hard I'll change it for a bit of rubber, but I just thought I'd try that first. Now check that wiring. Now here's the problem here. There's some broken bits of insulation around these wires. They're going off to the switch here to turn the motor on and off. So it's gone there, cracked here and gone there. So the rest of the wire here is fine. It's all nice and flexible. It's a rubber wire, but it's very flexible. It's quite good there. The issue is they've dipped this in the varnish when they've done dipped the whole thing into the varnish, and where it's got the varnish on it, it's cracked. So not sure what to do. It's too difficult to get this off the end of the switch. I'd have to take the entire mechanism off and then dismantle the mechanism to get the switch off to get to the screws that hold the cover on. So I think that's too hard to do. So what I'm thinking of doing is cutting it somewhere around here, putting some insulation back on the wire that's in there, and then doing a join back here. Now I haven't got a lot of play, that's the only thing. I'm not sure how I'm going to stretch it. I might have to add a bit of wire in the middle perhaps, but I can do that. That won't be an issue. Now these wires here are the supply in from the radio power source. They haven't cracked yet, but they are hard where the varnish is once again, so I'm going to replace those as well. These are a bit easier. I can just take the plug off the end there and put either new wires in there or put some insulation over the existing wire, replace the rubber wire here. So I think I'll start with this one and see how I get on with that. I'll just cut him there and there. So I've got a bit of red insulation here. I'm going to try and thread it down the wire. I'm just trying something here. I've wrapped a little spiral around there, and I'm going to try and get this in the spiral as well. Something like that. There you go. That looks pretty good. I put a bit of Baker's soldering flux on this to try and get any of the muck that's in there out as well. So. That seems a pretty good join. I can see the solders run up the wiring on both sides, so I'm pretty confident the wire has taken the solder on. So just a matter of putting that over there. I'll just push that back in. It's come out a bit. I should have checked before I did all that, but that'll be alright. Now what I'm going to do is put a bit of liquid insulation around there just to hold that. But I think that's a pretty good repair. Yeah, and still got plenty of room. So we only lost that 3 mil or so in length there. That wasn't too bad. Okay, I'll do the same repair to this one, and then I'll come back and we'll look at doing these power wires. I've got a little clip here just to take the strain off the wire. There you go. I think what I should do with these is just put new wire on and cut this about here and put a join in there, and then put some heat shrink inside there, and that should hang on to that. And I may even put a little clip across to here just to take any strain off it. So I'll just start on this earth wire now. Put a new one in there. Seems to be going well so far. I've got to change the wires over in this plug. I've put some tape around it and I've just marked which one's green and the two red ones, so I know where to put them back. Now this little washer that's left here used to be a solder tab strip that's rusted off or broken off, whatever. So I'm going to drill it out and put a new one on. Now I don't want all the swarf going into everything, so I'm going to try something silly. I'll put some tape there. I'll try and just stick it to the bottom. I'll do that and hopefully it'll keep the swarf off, and I've put it upside down so any swarf may stick to the tape, save me trying to sweep it up later. I soldered these wires down here. They're very fine, so they're out of the way of getting the connections up here taken on and off if they need to be. That's come up very well. Happy with that. And I have to get a proper nut for here. I didn't have one, so I'll have to go down the shop and get one. Now I was going to apply some liquid electrical tape just to these little areas here where it's going into the old coil. Unfortunately my can of liquid electrical tape's gone off, so I have to wait till I get to the shop and get some more, and then I'll put some on there. While I was working on the wires, I noticed this date penciled in on this bracket here. I'll just flip it over. And it says 30th of August 1955. I think that's more accurate than the 1961 it had on the speaker. I think that's a replacement speaker. So that's an interesting little thing. The last time I played this record player, I wasn't real happy with it. It wasn't working properly. It had a lot of wow in it. What I found is these rubber seals I put in here to make a tyre, I've cut the groove very tight so that they were tight in there, and I did that on purpose. And I think what happens is that when I stretch it over to get it on, one side ends up smaller than the other because I've stretched it, obviously. So I think that's what was going on. Perhaps I'd be better off making that groove a bit bigger and let the tyre sit in, and even put some adhesive in the bottom just to glue it in. Now this wheel's the spare one, it's not the one I'm using. Now what I have done is taken the one out of the record player and put it against the chuck with an axle through the middle and pushed very hard on the chuck as it rotated just to try and even this out. So I've fitted it back in the record player and I'll give it a go now. So I've set this old radio up here. This is the first radio I ever did. It was kind of a practice radio, so I didn't worry too much about the looks, but I got it working pretty well. I've plugged the output of the record player in the back there. Okay, let's give it a go. Oops. Good. Well, that's working really well. I couldn't pick up any problems with the sound there. I'll just try the other side for no reason whatsoever. That's why I tried that side. I like that song. I reckon that's going really well now, so I'm going to put this aside and start working on the case. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me fumble around with something I don't know anything about, but eventually got there, so quite happy with the way it's working at the moment. I hope you can join me next time for the final episode of my Stromberg Carlson radio adventure. Quiet on the set, and go.
The Earth rotates at about 1,000 miles at the equator.
Miles an hour. Okay, take two, do it again.
The Earth rotates at about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator.
Beautiful. Yeah, so write something, just write something. And then look up and say E equals mc squared. Now write something. Teddy.
E equals mc squared.
You say, hi Pa.
Hi Pa.
You should draw something and then look up and say, hi Pa.
Hi Pa.
Sorry, I laughed. Go. Do it again, sorry.
Hi Pa.
Okay. Go.
I want all those waxies out of there, Pa.
And just say, don't forget the electrodes, Pa.
When?
Now.
Don't forget the electrodes, Pa.
Okay, thank you. Quite well. Okay, don't put it in. Oh, well. Okay. Oh, it's still going. Now you look at the valve, that thing there, and say, I want all these valves checked, Pa.
Oh, these valves checked, Pa.
Okay, hold it up so we can see the valve. No, turn the other way. That's it. Just. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. I say, I want all these valves checked, Pa.
I want all these valves checked, Pa.
Okay. Do it again.
I want all these.
Valves checked, Pa.
I want all these valves checked, Pa.
Okay, we'll try again.
I want all these valves checked, Pa.
They're valves. And then turn around and look at the camera. Okay? So, not now. So, hold that there. Hold it up so we can see it. That's it. Then say, I want all these valves checked, Pa, and then turn around.
I want all these bells checked, Pa.
Oh, Josie. Try again. Okay, try again.
I want all these.
I can't see the valve. Turn around.
Okay. I want all these bells checked, Pa.
Okay, you didn't turn around. Okay. Do it again.
I want all these bells checked, Pa.
Look at the camera, not me. Try again.
I want all these bells checked, Pa.
No, mate. Okay. Do it again.
I want all these bells checked, Pa.